The East India Company built tens of thousands of miles of irrigation, so it ended famines. They stopped the Hindus and the Muslims from slaughtering each other, and they stopped sati. Do you know what sati is?
I don't.
It's wife burning.
Wife burning?
Wife burning. I will respect your culture and you will respect ours. In our culture, if you burn a woman, you're a murderer, and I'll hang every one of you. You know what bachabazi is? It's that horrible practice of passing a young boy around to his uncles and cousins. We don't care who you are. It's firing squad the next day. The really frustrating thing is in about 2018, some friends of mine were asked by the government of CAR, Central African Republic, which 4 years before had a coup and an uprising, and now the country had kind of devolved into two big warring factions, the Salika and the Anti-Balaka, which were supposedly a Christian and a Muslim gang that were fighting each other. The reality is they were just both criminals, and they were looting the country. And the country had previously collected about $600 million in tax on all the gold, diamond, copper, tin valued exports that were leaving the country. And now they were doing zero. And the mission was to collect the taxes, to establish a mining police force, collect the taxes on behalf of the government, and in doing so, basically choke out this gang activity so that there was safety on the roads, safe trading posts where people could mine legally and trade. The government would collect the revenue. It would work. Kind of the same way that trading posts guarded by the Pinkertons would have worked in the American West. Because as much as people think the American West was settled by the U.S. Army, the Pinkerton Detective Agency was about 6 times as large as the U.S. Army then. 6 times as many armed agents as the U.S. Army settling the American West. Why? Because banks, railways, telegraph operators needed security. The government wasn't doing that. So back to CAR. There's a UN embargo in the country. Of course, State Department blocked any such innovation of doing that. The Russians didn't. They rolled in there with 400 of their advisors, and now effectively Russia owns Central African Republic. Wagner Group takes about $1 billion a year out of those mines. It's a big funding source for the rest of their efforts. And so that was their first, I would say, success. They made an attempt to do some things in Mozambique. They did not do well against the jihadis. They had a bunch of their guys killed and beheaded in ambushes. But the Russians have used them as a vanguard in controlling some significant gas fields in Libya, now in Mali, trying to do in Burkina.
They're all over Africa, huh?
Yes. Yeah. In the same way, the East India Company, which, again, I think it's important to remember what built America in the first place. It was companies. I challenge your viewers to look at the American flag and look at the flag of Malaysia and tell me what they see that's similar. The American flag was made from the East India Company flag. All that Betsy Ross did was cut the Union Jack out and sew in a field of blue stars. The rest of our flag was the East India Company flag. The East India Company operated in India mostly for trade with a security element. And that was a model that worked there for hundreds of years. They overplayed their hand, Britain did, in the United States, and the colonists rose up and pushed them out. But a small number pushed them out. 40% of the American, 40% was pro-crown. There was another 30% in the middle that didn't really care. There was 30% that were pro-independence in the American Revolution. Only 10% of that 30%, 3% of the American population actually took up arms against the British Crown.
Interesting.
So this competition now in Africa, why have all these French, right? There's been like 7 coups in the last 3 years. No, 8 coups now, because Gabon just fell as well. All French legacy colonies. It is a collapse of governance. It's a question of the legitimacy of the government that's there. Are those governments, well, first, before even the jihad issue enters in, are those governments providing any means for the people to start crawling off the bottom rung of the ladder to start moving up? There's no land rights. There's no ability to get a banking account. All those, the most basic elements of capitalism, which is what the U.S. should be doing in the capacity building and aid programs that we do, but instead it's mostly spent on gender issues and social engineering issues, which is not important to the people and actually quite offensive. Yes, the Russians have certainly played a role in stoking the anti-French hate, doing social media manipulation. That's definitely a Wagner function.
They're involved in that?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Sure. Look, as a company, it's not really.
That's what I want to ask. What is it?
It's a brand. Wagner Group is a brand name.
Is it government, or is it like what you had with Blackwater, a private entity?
It is. I don't know their corporate structure, but there's not a company called Wagner Group that's hiring these people. There's maybe a company that does some aviation. There's another company that does manning. There's another guy because Prigozhin started as a caterer. Well, first he has a restaurant, and he was a popular restaurant, got to know Putin and those guys, and he started doing catering or like log cap type contracts for the Russian army.
This is the guy that started it.
Prigozhin.
Okay.
The guy who's now dead. So starts as a caterer or a restaurant, catering, log cap type stuff for the Russian army, builds a PMC, builds horizontally to, basically full spectrum operations from political messaging, manipulation, social media campaigns, to training of police or training of military, to blended to full-on combat forces, offensive type stuff, which is what you've even seen them doing in Ukraine. But this competition, these collapses happening all over Africa is A, stimulated by that messaging, B, maybe some recruitment and backing of a few of those military officers that say, yeah, you'd be better at this, you should do it, and we'll support you. And it's a lack of consequences from the West of going after them, right? The U.S. answer to all these coups is, we're going to sanction those guys. So they can't get a U.S. or a French bank account or a European bank account. So what? The real scary thing is you have all kinds of different jihadi organizations flowing around the Sahel. Ever since Libya, ever since the Obama administration took out Gaddafi in 2011, millions of those arms leaked all over the Sahel and empowered all these jihadis. And they're basically self-funding off of mining, particularly gold, kidnapping, extortion, etc. If those various different shithead jihadi organizations unite under one strong leader, you're going to have a super Taliban, Al-Qaeda-like capability all over the Sahel that will take out those countries completely. And
time is a funny thing. It's so limited, and yet we let it pass by us. We're all guilty of putting important things off until later. If you've been putting off life insurance, check out Fabric by Gerber Life. They make it fast and easy so you can check it off your list right now. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today. Made for busy parents like you, all online and on your schedule right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. Fabric has partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families just like yours for over 50 years. There's no risk, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can cancel at any time. And they have over 1,900 five-star reviews on Trustpilot with a rating of excellent. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/srclips. That's meetfabric.com/srclips. MEET fabric.com/srclips. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
on top of that, they've had a demographic bloom because like 20 years ago, the Gates Foundation started doing all kinds of vaccination programs there. and it reduced the childhood mortality, which is wonderful for the kids. But the law of unintended consequences, you have this bloom of military age manpower in countries with no prospects for a job, no embrace of education or capitalism, or no plan for them to start climbing the ladder of getting better, except they have access to money and weapons and a unifying ISIS-like jihad mindset, which is going to be trouble for a lot of those already very thinly, like barely functional states. It's tough to call Niger a country. And most of those countries in Africa don't even meet far from meeting the minimum human development index that the UN sets for these countries. So if the government isn't even doing the most basic of things for its citizens, is it really a country, or is it just a line drawn on a map?
It
is a
interesting reality that nobody thought of.
It's a very challenging, very, very challenging reality. It's fixable. It's solvable. And if you look back at history as to how it was done in the past, that's what will be turned to again. And it is not going to be done by sending the 82nd Airborne Division there.
It's fascinating to see the cause and effect, take place from
and again,
the vaccination program. What did that cause? And then you just described it. And then
I'm not saying it's the vaccination problem that caused it, but it definitely caused a massive bloom of more population that survived. And now they're all standing around saying, what do we do? Well, I guess we go make jihad. And this gets solved by establishing some level of credible security, getting people some kind of property rights where they have the means to farm or the means to better themselves and to feed themselves. And when you look at even of what was done in Africa, well, let me back up. I'll tell one story. Back in 2017, when I was really pushing the Trump administration to change the strategy in Afghanistan, I wrote an op-ed, and Trump saw it, and he wanted to do that, but really the Beltway national security clique said, no, hell no, that's a terrible idea. Everything I recommended was based on what worked for the East India Company for 200 years, which was better to employ people than to fight people. 2, if you're going to do security, you have to have locals, but you have to have locals led by professional expats, effectively like training wheels to keep the bike upright. And I was speaking at the Henry Jackson Society in London, which is like almost like a heritage foundation on foreign policy stuff. And I was laying this out, speaking unabashedly about the positives and some of the negatives about the East India Company, that it worked, and stop being ashamed of it, because this is the nature of how you should do stability operations. Because again, much better to employ people and to build out the economy with a credible security capability. And at the end of the Q&A, this Pakistani guy stands up, and I thought, oh, here it comes. He's gonna attack me. And he said, everything that Eric said about the East India Company is exactly right. And he said, unlike these damn communists that have been trashing everything the East India Company did, I have gone back to the original records of the company and found the following. Yes, the East India Company built tens of thousands of miles of irrigation and made it possible for the entire subcontinent to feed itself, not just to feed itself, but to export food. So it ended famines. They stopped the debtor prisons, which were common all over the subcontinent, and stopped the warlordism. They stopped the Hindus and the Muslims from slaughtering each other by the thousands and tens of thousands. And they stopped sati. Do you know what sati is?
I don't.
It's wife burning.
Wife burning?
Wife burning.
Burning your wife alive?
Yes, it's a old Hindu awful practice. My favorite statue in London, and I was out for a run one morning, and it was in Trafalgar Square. So, Lord Nelson, the victor at the Battle of Trafalgar, which defeated the French Navy. Over in the corner is Charles Napier, and it caught my attention. It said this statue was erected from the donation of private soldiers. So I looked into Charles Napier, and sure enough, He'd been a battlefield commander for the Duke of Wellington, helped to deliver the victory at Waterloo against the French, and then he shipped off to India, and he's going to be the governor of one of the 4 trading colonies, or they called them presidencies in India. I think it was in Calcutta. And as he's getting there, he arrives, and the locals are building this funeral pyre in the center of the city. He goes, "What's this?" And they said, "Oh, yes, you must respect our tradition. Tomorrow we will burn this Indian noble has died, and tomorrow we're going to burn his wife. And she was alive." He said, "Come back tomorrow." So that night, he had his East India Company forces erect a gallows surrounding that funeral pyre. And he said, "I will respect your culture and you will respect ours. In our culture, if you burn a woman, you're a murderer, and I'll hang every one of you if you touch her. No more sati."
Amazing.
If you're not confident enough in your culture to do that once in a while, you're screwed. And I think we the United States, lost a huge opportunity in Afghanistan by doing something just as bad. You know what bachabazi is?
I don't.
You probably heard of it, but it's that horrible practice of passing a young boy around to his uncles and cousins or whatever to be brutally sexually exploited. Awful. Not only do we not stop it, the Obama administration penalized SF guys who stopped that from happening.
Yep.
They didn't kill, they just tuned up some corrupt shitbag police commander who was raping his T-boy. They caught him in the act and they beat him up and they court-martialed him for it. If we had done in 2002 and we said, no more bachabazi, we don't care who you are, if you're a warlord or if you're the junior man, no more. We see you doing it, it's firing squad the next day. Every woman in Afghanistan, even the mothers of every Taliban, would have been on our side. Why? Because no woman wants that for their child. What a fail. What a fail of the generals to say, I represent the United States military. We stand for certain things, and there's some things I will not overlook. And what a missed opportunity. Thank God for all those women in India that Charles Napier said, not on my watch.
Man, I gotta just, our military leadership is just on a downward slope. It has been for a long time. They're just spineless.
All things ebb and flow, man. All things ebb and flow.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.